So this week I'm going to talk about, I don't fully know what I'm going to talk about, but I'm using the last two questions of the week and kind of as a jumping off point. So the last week I asked this question a couple times and people came up and read it and they got like really kind of white in the face, and people were starting to get all morose and kind of like worried by it. And the question was, has your greatest fear ever come true? And if it hasn't, what if it did? And I had some people say, yes, my greatest fear has come true. And I had some people like, I don't know what my greatest fear is. That's kind of the point of the question, is what is your greatest fear? Like, know it. And then I really like the question, what if it did? So if really like the worst thing that you could imagine happened to you, what would you do about it? How would you react to it? And this is on some level really what we practice all the time in martial arts, is the ability to respond well. So if you haven't thought about what your greatest fear is yet, I think a lot of times when you hear that, something pops into mind, and some people are like, zombies. Some people are like, heights, I'm falling off of a building. Or some people are, well, I find out that she cheated on me, or my child is sick, or whatever. My answer to this question, or when I think of my greatest fear, it really relates to this week's question, which is, how are you pursuing your dreams right now? And because my life is not overly dramatic, like terrible things don't happen to me really. And it's largely because of the way that I've designed my life, and it's also just luck and where I was born in a very wealthy country in a safe neighborhood and great parents and all that stuff. But when I think of my greatest fears, what I think about is not being able to pursue my dream. And for some people, that's a reality in the world, depending on what country you're born into and what country you're living in. It's impossible to pursue your dreams because you are oppressed. And we're lucky enough to be in a country where that's not true. And I think of Sifu Brown. Sifu Brown was born with cerebral palsy. He could not walk. In fact, doctors said, you will never walk. He had braces on his legs. And he was also born, and is still to this day, dyslexic. So he has very difficult time reading. And if you can imagine, you cannot imagine the kind of childhood that Sifu Brown had. I can't imagine the kind of childhood that Sifu Brown had. I got made fun of as a kid, and I was a victim of society and all that stuff, but Sifu Brown had it rough. And most people just discounted him and said, this kid's never going to amount to anything. Like, how? How could he? And he went from there, through martial arts, became an incredibly successful martial artist, teacher, business owner. At one point, we had the biggest, or one of the biggest martial arts schools in the whole country for adults. And this is a man who, it is incredibly difficult to just read a book, like a short book. He said the first book he ever read was Zen and the Martial Arts. We sell it here. And he said that's one of the reasons he loved that book so much. And he threw it across the room 100 times, just getting angry at it while he's trying to read it. So I think of Sifu Brown, and one of the things that he says is somebody who can read but doesn't is no better off or even worse than somebody who can't read. So Sifu Brown appreciates the ability to read, and in the same vein, we're given this chance, this innate opportunity wherever you are in life, especially if you live where we live and you have the opportunities that we have. You can do amazing things. Almost anything that you can possibly think of to do. And I mean any career that anybody has ever had that you know, and anything else that you could come up with. Like, there are plenty of things to do that nobody has done yet. And so when I think of these two questions together, I think, man, it's just so easy to kind of just go through life like this. And things are okay. I mean, they're good enough. You know, I'm healthy. I have a nice family. I have friends, and like I could just kind of sail, and I would be pretty happy. But that is such a cosmic cop-out, like to have the opportunities that I have, that I'm fully aware of, and then to just like live a ho-hum life and to not really pour myself into what I'm doing and pursue my passion and my dreams. And in my case, it's teaching martial arts. And it's teaching real martial arts to as many people as possible. And I've got a crazy number that Sifu Brown put in my head, because this is Sifu Brown's number. It's 1 million people. I want to impact 1 million people before I die with martial arts. And I think that I'm not going to become a drug addict, or I'm not going to become homeless. I'm not going to, go rob banks. I'm not going to do a lot of the terrible things that people do or that happen to people out there. But it's very conceivable that I could just kind of be okay with having 100 or 200 students and just show up and teach some classes and then go home. Now, I would be happier than most people, and I would be way happier than I used to be or than I would be in any other situation, because I'm still teaching martial arts and doing what I love. But there's a difference between, just doing it and pouring yourself into it and taking that number of 1 million and saying, I'm gonna actually do everything that I can to make that happen, and to live every day like that. So one of my greatest fears, because it's so realistic, is just being average, being par, being mediocre. And that is something that I refuse to do. And it's not like every day I'm my most amazing self, far from it. But every day I either am my most amazing self, or I recognize I'm not my most amazing self today. It's time to do something. And if I look at it in terms of this is something that I refuse to do, because it's just even on a moral level, it's just not right to just sail through life and not pour yourself into it. I think I'm not doing my job as a human being. And it's one of the things that makes me very happy. If you spend time around me, you know that I'm pretty happy. I'm either smiling or yelling, and while I'm yelling, I'm smiling. But it's because my life is simple. If I meditate and I teach martial arts every day, I'm happy, because I know that I am doing my job as a human being. But if I get other people to meditate, and I get other people to love martial arts and to get what I've gotten out of it, then I'm going a little bit further, in that I can see it in other people. And then I feel really extra special. And then if I can get 1 million people to do that, well, that's just insane. That's amazing. And that's what I'm aiming for, is insanely amazing. So if you have in your head, like I say, your greatest fear, it doesn't have to be the same as mine, but let's just take out all of the super dramatic fears of like, I'm falling to my death out of an airplane, or whatever it is. I have my body is riddled with cancer, or my best friend is dying. If you take away all of the like extremes and you bring it back to what's something that I'm really afraid could happen in my life that I can do something about it right now. I think mediocrity is one of those things, and it's something that you can every day check yourself and ask, am I really pushing it? And it could be with anything. So like health is a huge thing. And people put it in really dramatic terms all the time. It's like, that's why so many people are obese in this country, is because you wait until you are obese to do something about it. You're like, oh, the doctor says I'm dying because I'm so fat. Well, then now I'm going to do something. Now I'm going to start, exercising and juicing or whatever. But that's ridiculous. Why do we wait so long? Why do we wait until it's already to the point of almost of no return? Instead, if you wake up every day and you say, I want to be healthy. Yeah, I don't want to get obese, but I also just want to be like more than just mediocre. More than the way that I am, it's okay, but could be better. So what can I do? What can I do today that will make me a little bit healthier? What's something that I can take out of my diet or add into my diet? What's an exercise that I can do? Some people might say, I wonder if I should practice martial arts. That would make me very healthy. But it's little things that add up. So when you're faced with this question of what's my greatest fear that's not like crazy and dramatic, and what if it came true? Well, then what would I do? Well, if you never let it get to that point, then you don't have to answer that part of the question, I guess, which is part of the idea of practicing martial arts. For a lot of people, their fears involve being physically attacked. And it's like, if you wait to start learning martial arts until after you've already been attacked, well, I have some students who are in that situation. They've been violently attacked, they've been raped, they've been robbed, and then they come in and they're like, I don't want that to happen again. And I completely got that. And those people should practice martial arts for sure. And if you can start that even earlier, then great. And martial arts is just the example that I use all the time because it's the only thing that I think about all day long. But you can think of whatever it is that is for you, that would be like that slow, easy death of just like, I wake up one day, I'm 90 years old, and I think, I didn't really do anything. I didn't really do what I wanted to do. I just kind of like let life push me around, and then I got there. Siva Brown says, if you wait too long to decide what you're going to do with your life, you'll wake up one day and discover that it's been done because your life is over, and like what you wanted to do, it cannot happen anymore. We're going to have New Year's resolutions talk pretty soon, right around the New Year every year. I love this talk. It's one of my favorites. And when you look at pursuing your dreams, this talk is all about setting goals and like how to make great goals and how to actually achieve them, which is a necessary part of pursuing your dreams. And one of the things that I'll talk about in depth with that meditation class is you have this idea in your head. For me, it's 1 million students, but for you, it's whatever it is. And you have this idea in your head, and you usually come up with a specific way that you're going to do it. Or it's in some way, it's kind of fleshed out at some point. Like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. And we get attached to that. And in the pursuit of our dreams, when we become attached, that stifles it. And this is really how people fall into mediocrity, is we have this idea of, oh, I'm going to do this and it's going to be amazing, and so I got to go this way. And then like at some point early on in our trek, in our journey, we like fall off the path, or something, we hit a stumbling block or something gets in the way, and then we look and we say, I'm not going to get that. I think I used this example last week, but I'll use it again because it's perfect. This year, one of my goals was to be vegan all year. And literally the first thing that I did after I made that goal was eat a piece of chocolate that ended up being milk chocolate. And before martial arts, the very first thing that I would do in that situation is just go, I guess this year is not going to happen. I'll just wait until next year. And it's that like, I'll just put it off. It's that attitude of like, well, it didn't happen exactly the way that I wanted it to, so I'm just going to give up completely. Really honestly, because human beings are very lazy, and we are just looking for the first chance to get out of doing work. I see this all the time, unfortunately, in our practice, that there are a lot of people that come and stay forever, and then there are a lot of people who never really get started, because in the first month, it's like, man, this is hard. It is way harder than I thought it was going to be. And so their boss asks them to stay late one day after work, and they say, well, I guess this martial arts thing isn't going to work because I missed Wednesday and I said I was going to be there, so I'll just never show back up. And it's because people are like looking for the first escape hatch. It's like, I got to get out of this thing that I said I was going to do because it's it's so hard, or it's so I have to be so disciplined. I have to really like try in order to do this. And we just love to have things be easy. But to really pursue your dream, it will never be easy. Now, it will sometimes be easy, or it will sometimes be simple. But to really get somewhere huge, it's going to take a lot, and there are going to be many, many stumbling blocks. So the important thing to do is to not fall into that trap of the first time something gets in my way, I just say, well, I guess I'll just try again next year. Or, well, I guess that was too hard, I should just choose something easier. And meditation is the same way. This is one of the great things about meditation, is that it trains us to have this will to keep going. Because when you sit and meditate, has anybody had a meditation like this where you sit and meditate and you just have no thoughts from the very beginning? You're just like, my mind is totally perfectly clear, and this is so easy. I have complete control over my thoughts and my emotions, and life is wonderful. Has anybody ever had a meditation like that? You had one?
Yes.
How long was it? 10 seconds? 20 minutes? And from the very beginning, you literally had no thoughts. What, were you on drugs or something? Okay, so Lee is a special case. But the rest of us, no, I mean, I've had great meditations, but I've never had a meditation where I just literally had no thoughts. At least in the beginning, it always starts with, I sit and then, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm supposed to be breathing. All right, now I got to sit up straight and I do this. All right. And then I hear something and my mind wanders, and then I come back to it. And then at some point early on in the meditation, there is a very strong invitation that sneaks up on you that's like, here's a thing that you really need to think about right now. There's this problem in your life that you got to solve. It's got to happen right now in meditation. Or here's like this thing that happened to me when I was 2 years old, and I got to think about this because it's so compelling. Like, and your mind just wants to dive down into that. And really our job and our goal in meditation is to immediately come right back to the path that we're on, which is in our case just following the breath. And that is going to happen countless times in meditation, where your mind wanders, you bring it back. Your mind wanders, you bring it back. And the kind of messed up thing about meditation is you're not going to get to the end of your meditation and and like have achieved your goal of becoming enlightened or, you know, completely disciplining your thoughts or whatever, because they say you only really meditate once. The one time you meditate is when it happens and you know, realize the oneness, and you've seen behind the darkness of closed eyes, and you recognize what it's like when your ego is dissolved and it's just you and the infinite. And until that happens, we're just back and forth in this tug of war of thought and trying to come back to the breath. And that is one of the great things about meditation. I mean, it would be really great if you just sat and became enlightened the first shot, but it would be, again, a little bit too easy. Like our job in this life and this plane of existence is to deal with suffering and deal with the hard work that is to be done, and then to do it. So when we sit to meditate and we face this adversity of these thoughts that sneak up on us or really try to drag us into this cycle of thought, or the tapes that we play in our head, then that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity to come back. And when you are, if you think about mediocrity in terms of meditation, I mean, that's what I feel a lot of us do in many meditations, where it's just, I'm just sitting. I mean, I said I was going to sit, so I'm sitting, and I did it. All right, just leave me alone. And that's like you talking to yourself. But if we can have this dream in meditation of, you know, whatever that end goal or that end meditation is, and in this moment, in this meditation, to constantly pursue it, and yet when we get knocked off track, to not be attached to it and just give up and say, well, I guess this meditation, it's not going to happen. Because that's what happens. That's how we let ourselves off the hook. We say, well, I'm not going to become enlightened at this meditation. It's ridiculous. It's going to take me years. Or like Catherine. You guys know Catherine went out and like lived in the woods for well, 4 or 5 days? 5 days. And completely alone, no human interaction, meditating and journaling and practicing forms, and like sounds like an amazing and yet incredibly difficult weekend. Because like, how do you not go crazy? Like, because when we sit and meditate for 30 seconds, you start to go crazy a little bit. But when you get knocked off track, and I'm sure this happened over your weekend, there were, you know, I wanted to be doing this, and you were telling me about when you're moving the rocks and building the maze, and you got sidetracked off on this, and it like kept happening. You just come back to it. Come back to what you're doing. That's the discipline of meditation, is to have this goal, to have this dream, to pursue it strong. Yet, when you get knocked off the path, you weren't so attached to it had to happen exactly the way that I wanted it to happen. So I just come right back to it. I'm in this moment, and I just go back to doing the work, and eventually it happens. The only way that it can happen is if we stay unattached to things being perfect exactly the way that we want them to be, and just work. In meditation, it's just, you have the thought, you come back to the breath. So that's what we're going to practice tonight. And it's oftentimes helpful to place in your mind, you know, this thought of what I want to get out of meditation, where I want to get to someday, and remind yourself of the intense nature of what it is that we're really trying to do here, so that you have this kind of sense of urgency, so that when you do get knocked off and you start thinking, you immediately come back to the breath. You don't let it go. So that's your job tonight, is catch it right away, come back to the path of feeling the breath, disciplining the mind as many times as it takes. Sit comfortably.